So we're coming to the end of A Victim Bites Back, my journey in a Rolls-Royce from London all the way down through France and Spain, across the Straits of Gibraltar, into Morocco, down to Marrakesh, around Morocco, on the way back, up through Spain, to the south of France, then on the train back to London, and then back out from London to the car, which is waiting in the south of France, down to Venice, Rome, back to the south of France, up through Switzerland to Munich, and now I'm driving from Munich through into France, that's from Germany into France, towards Paris, on my way back to London, England. And you'll notice that as I drive the car happily out of Germany, that we reach France, and all France is, all the border is one little sign by the side of the road. That's it. No police, no stopping, nothing else. And my thinking is this: Europe should be entirely like this. Great Britain should be a part of Europe, and people should be able to come in and out, and goods should be traded in and out with the same simplicity, and we'd all be a great deal better off than we are at the moment with stupid nationalism interrupting humanity. It's an 8 or 9 hour drive from Munich, right the way across Germany, then into France, and right the way across France until I get to Paris. One of the longer drives of my enormous journey, which is rapidly approaching the end of its time and has been great fun. When I come to Paris by train, I like to have my lunch at the Gare de Lyon Train Bleu, which I think I mentioned to you before and showed you in an earlier show. And for dinner, well, I'm staying in the Hotel Molitor, and up on the roof they have a rooftop restaurant, which is excellent and very unusual. I see, however, it's changed, of course, in August. Everything's a little bit different. And they have a special August menu, which looks very interesting and very good, so I'm prepared to give that a try. It is nice up here. You can oversee the pools down below, but also you get the great views of Paris. I've been staying here for years and years now. It's a very interesting hotel, and the restaurant has always been very good, so let's see how the food is in August. Sadly, the food turned out to be very inferior. I ordered ham and melon, and both were fine, except exactly the same as I would have bought in a supermarket. I had a lovely cocktail which looked delicious, tasted okay, but really wasn't special, and I then followed it with lobster thermidor. I'm afraid I suspect the lobster thermidor and the potatoes were popped into a microwave, and they really didn't taste very nice at all. It's a bit of a shame, really. I suppose hotels do obviously decline in August because Paris suddenly becomes bereft of Parisians, all of whom head off down to the Riviera. And there's only tourists here, so most places, restaurants and hotels, actually close. And those that remain open cater to the tourists who, as we all know, have no taste buds functioning whatsoever, so can be sold inferior foods and quite possibly inferior wines at hugely expanding prices. Indeed, the rooms are hugely expensive now. The rooms here in the Molitor were so expensive I could only afford to stay a couple of nights. But I did enjoy swimming in the pool, which is gorgeous in the daytime and actually looks even prettier at night time, which it now is, having finished my rather below average meal. And it is actually lovely standing there, sipping my coffee, looking at the other diners and regarding the pool by night, beautifully lit, always wonderfully clean, and I can do my usual 5 hours a day swimming in it if I can ever manage to do that many hours a day again. I was sad to hear of the death of Michael Parkinson, the king of the chat show. I was on his show many times and thought he was a very good interviewer and a great guy. Here I am with Douglas Fairbanks. One of Michael's favourite records of mine, he told me several times, was Lazybones.
Lazybones, sleeping in the sun. How you gonna get your day's work done? Never get your day's work done. Sleeping in the noonday sun. Lazybones, sleeping in the shade. How you gonna get your cornmeal made? Never get your cornmeal made. When taters need sprayed, I bet you keep praying the slugs fall off of the vine. And when you go fishing, I bet you keep wishing the fish won't nip your line. Lazy loafing holiday. How you gonna make a dime that way? Never make a dime that way. You never hear a word I say. Never make a dime that way. Hey, you never hear a word I say. Lazybones, sleeping in the sun. How you gonna get your day's work done? Never get your day's work done. Sleeping in the noonday sun. Hey, lazybones, sleeping in the sun. Lazybones, sleeping in the sun. Hey, lazybones.
So after a couple of days of relaxing in Paris, swimming in the pool, enjoying the cuisine, normally very good, of Paris, and gently relaxing in my lovely hotel, less lovely in August, and also the staff seem to be falling to bits, and all sorts of little extra bits and pieces are not around. It incidentally costs a fortune to park the car when I'm there. Onto the train, driving all the way up to Calais and then getting onto the train, which essentially opens up, and the car is there for about half an hour, going between Calais and Dover, eventually arriving in Dover, and then I get the car off the train, and which is always very smooth and goes very easily, and drive my way up to London town. Remembering, of course, to drive on the left, having driven on the right for the best part of the last year. With my steering wheel on the right, and sometimes that gets a bit confusing when you go onto or off a motorway or somewhere like this, coming off the train onto the main roads. And then the drive to London, which is usually probably a couple of hours from getting off the train to my front door and in my house, where I then start getting myself ready for life in the United Kingdom. Beginning, of course, with saying, OK, you can have a little bit of a relax now to my out-of-focus Rolls-Royce, and I move into my little baby car, the Suzuki Cappuccino, which I do love zipping around in, and the Rolls goes off to its mechanic, who looks after all the small faults that may have occurred. There's a bit of creaking in the bushes or brushes or whatever they call those things. The occasional steering needs tightening up, tyres need looking at. They have to examine, make sure all the mineral oil levels are correct and the oil and the water and all that sort of thing, which little car will go through over the next few months. One of my great joys in life is being in baby car when I'm in London and the sun is shining and I can take the roof off, which I can't at the moment because the sun isn't really shining, and I drive around London and you see the tops of the buildings and the sky and everything else. I absolutely love it. It's a wonderful thing to do. I remember that sort of started way back in the 1970s. A friend of the Beans had a horse-drawn carriage, and he used to take rich Americans and others around the city of London, and you could see everything that way. And it was a revelation to me, because you never tend to look up at the tops of buildings, and yet it's a part of the city that is really worth seeing. So I love doing it, and I love doing it in baby car, because baby car is an absolute joy. I bought it almost 30 years ago. I could sell it now for much more than I bought it with. It's technically a Suzuki Cappuccino, and it is an absolute delight. And you'd be astonished at the amount of people who look at it and wave and come and want photographs taken when I'm in it. If Suzuki have any sense, they'll design an electric or a hybrid car that looks exactly like baby car, the Cappuccino. They will sell millions.
It was a hot August night in New York City, and I was driving in my blue Cadillac. At the end of the day, on Brighton Beach and Coney Island, I was missing the freeway to get back. Cruised in the tenements of Brooklyn, just around Myrtle Street. I heard the sound of a young boy singing, carried through the night on the heat. Gimme, gimme, gimme some money. Gimme, gimme, gimme some sexy girls. Gimme, gimme, gimme some give and take. Give me a break, give me a break, give me a break. I closed up the window to shut off the noise. I turned on the cold air and punched cold radio stations. Who wants to hear traffic and songs from young boys? I tuned into some and some old conversations. But I was thinking about the words of his song, and I was knowing just what he was feeling. As I drove across the Brooklyn Bridge back into Manhattan, I was singing and thinking and revealing. Gimme, gimme, gimme some money. Gimme, gimme, gimme some sexy girls. Gimme, gimme, gimme some give and take. Give me a break, give me a break, give me a break. I rejected dinosaur rock and the disco beat, and I fixed on Bruce singing Oh Thunder Roll as I bounced through the potholes of 57th Street, looking for a place to park and unload, when a news flash came on about a killing in town. How a guy had gone crazy in the heat, shot his mother and father and sister all down, somewhere around Brooklyn, Myrtle Street. Gimme, gimme, gimme some money. Gimme, gimme, gimme some sexy girls. Gimme, gimme, gimme some give and take. Give me a break, give me a break, give me a break. Gimme, gimme, gimme some money. Gimme, gimme, gimme some sexy girls. Gimme, gimme, gimme some give and take. Give me a break, give me a break, give me a break. Gimme, gimme, gimme some money. Gimme, gimme, gimme some sexy girls. Gimme, gimme, gimme some give and take. Give me a break.
I've got absolutely nothing against women who want to play football playing football, just as women who want to play tennis can play tennis. But I have to admit that watching either of them I don't really enjoy. There are, of course, exceptions. If there's a really great tennis player like Serena Williams or Martina Navratilova, I enjoy watching their matches because they're so good. But generally, I just don't enjoy watching women's tennis and tend not to do so. Likewise, women's football. I did actually end up watching the Spain against Sweden semi-final because I really felt I should be watching both semi-finals. I so disliked it and I found it so awful. I couldn't watch the England versus whoever it was they beat in the semi-final, Colombia, was it? But of course I did end up watching the final. Well, I had to. England was in it. I thought Spain were far and away the best in the Spain-Sweden game, and also far and away the best in the Spain-English final. Although actually I don't use the word best very lightly, because I just think women's football is awful to watch. They're not built to kick a ball hard, to tackle people, to do anything really, as they bop about, mimsy, squealing, screaming. I mean, the huge, spectacular British success in the final was the bimbo goalkeeper saving the penalty. Excuse me, the penalty was kicked very softly in the direction where the goalkeeper was heading, and she saved it with the greatest of ease. I could have saved it. Indeed, I could have actually kicked the shot harder than the Spanish bimbo who did. I absolutely hate women's football. I shall not be watching any more. The other huge scandal of the last week is the Lucy Letby scandal. The nurse who apparently killed loads of babies by injecting them with air or milk or insulin or whatever. Well, the moment I read about this, as I'm sure everybody did, you thought, that's just so horrifying. How could anybody do that? It's so ghastly. And the moment she was found guilty, we all cheered. And in fact, the only worry I had was the way the hospital and the organisation behind her instinctively did as every organisation does these days, and that is support the victim. The victim was Lucy Letby, who was being accused of killing babies. However, more than that, she was a woman. she was a woman. And women are always backed by all organisations. So therefore, A, the victim, and B, a woman, there was no way that the organisation in charge was going to look at the other side of the possibility, which turned out to be the fact that she was out there killing these babies. However, after I said that, and I got quite a few messages and calls on the website from people saying, we don't think she did kill those babies. And I looked more closely at it. And of course, the main thing that persuaded me, and I think the jury and many others, was she was present at every event where a baby died. I suspect she was also present at almost every event where a baby didn't die. But that, of course, was never mentioned. We never saw how many babies who lived was she present at. I'm sure it was many more than the 28 of the babies that died or were harmed. Also, I know the way the police and the CPS work. They stack up the charges if they possibly can. If there's, for instance, a case they think of somebody injecting a baby and killing the baby, they turn that into 7 or 8 charges, ranging from God knows what, kidnapping to violence, coercion, all sorts of things. So the charge sheet suddenly looks incredible. Dozens of people, dozens of crimes. But when you look closely at it, you go, you know what? There's a lot wrong with this. There's been an awful lot of things that you think, hang on, this wasn't covered. Why weren't people who believed she didn't do it brought to court to give evidence? And there were quite a few of those, as you saw watching the television coverage. Her friends still to this day are convinced she did not do anything wrong. So I'm worried on both those 2 counts. One, it tends to indicate that people are so brainwashed now that anyone claiming to be a victim of anything will be supported, as opposed to a balanced view of both sides. 2, she may not be guilty of what she was convicted of. I'm sure she did something wrong, whether it was inefficiency or incompetence or possibly even some kind of madness took over. Plus, I have to say, I do think people should look after people in those cases. There are always more than one victim with a crime. Yes, there's a person who was killed or abused or whatever. There is also the perpetrator whose life then turns into a misery. And so, by the way, to all of their families, friends and everybody around them. I think it's time we started being decent to both sides. Yes, lock people up if they're criminals and murderers and terrorists and so on. Yes, make sure they don't do it again. Yes, if that means locking them up and never letting them out after they've been examined, okay. But treat them kindly, treat them decently. I mean, I must say, if she is in fact guilty of all those killings of babies, she needs psychiatric and medical help. That's what she needs, much more than being in prison. Yes, she should be locked away while having it, but for God's sakes, how could any sane person do anything like that? We need to sort that out for her sake, let alone society's sake. It really is time humanity started having some kindness, decency, honesty, and basic balance about itself.
Put that weed in your mouth, boy, and take that sweet young thing off your lap. If you survive this antisocial behavior, you're gonna have to face a long-term prison ride. That's illegal, that's immoral, it's unhealthy, but it's fun. It's illegal, it's immoral, it's unhealthy, but it's fun. Don't put your foot down too far now, and don't mess where you ought not to mess. Either your health or society's protectors is gonna catch up with you one day, more or less.